1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Exit.
Announced the arrival of the flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion. And welcome everybody to this It's Wednesday, the Wednesday, May 4th, 2016 edition of T&Z Talk. Welcome to our podcast-only format. We're very excited about that. It allows us to be sure that we do all kinds of naughty things every day with respect to the show. And there's a lot to talk about on this Wednesday, and let's get into it. Joining me now is Richard Zombeck, who is the Z in T&Z. And I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Tony Tripiano,
and
who is the T in
And he
T&Z.
is Tony Tripiano, the T in T&Z.
And anyway, everybody, welcome to today's podcast. And, you know, Z, I got to tell you, since we last did the show on Thursday of last week, because Friday you had, sadly, some personal funeral stuff to attend to.
Two in
Not
a row.
your own, of course, or you wouldn't be here.
2 in a row.
2 in a row, right, which is not the kind of streak you want to continue. But since then, all kinds of monumental shifts have happened in the political tectonic plates of the United States. Most importantly, and I do say importantly for a reason, Donald Trump is now the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party, or the grand old party, the GOP. But before we even get to that, the White House Correspondents' Dinner was on Saturday night. And I got to tell you, I have watched all of them for many years now, including the George W. Bush years. Yeah, exactly. And I got to tell you a story about one of his in a little bit. But President Obama, I love that man. He rocks.
I gotta tell you, I actually watched it. I have never watched it live. I've always I'll catch it tomorrow, or I'll catch it online or something like that. And it happened to be on. It was late. It was, later than I would have expected. It was like 10 or 10:30, which isn't late for me, but I thought that it was late for him to go on, for some reason. I don't know. I always kind of figured it would be prime time, but anyway, I was laughing out loud. And I don't mean LOL. I was laughing. And the thing is looking at it in retrospect and reading some of the commentary afterwards, not only was this a clear indication of Obama having no F's left to give, but it was also it was pretty harsh. Like at the time, it was like, oh, this is good. The stand-up is good. There's some funny jokes. But he really laid into the press, the GOP, the press,
and Bernie and Hillary. Although he was pretty kind to Bernie.
He was surprisingly kind to Bernie and kind of mean to Hillary.
He was, but it's obvious he's supporting her. He starts off by saying next year at this time, there will be someone else here, whoever she is. Yeah. But then he also said, if this works out, I'm going to use this material next year at the Goldman Sachs. Right. So, say what you want to, Z. It was pretty damn funny nonetheless. And I thought it was hilarious the way that CNN, especially Wolf Blitzer, responded to the president's remarks. Lighten up, guys. It was, yes, there's a sense of a tone of seriousness to it, but it was also meant to be freaking funny. Lighten up.
Well, but he also, he laid into the press pretty hard with some of the stuff that he said. And part of what he said was basically that this whole Trump thing is your fault. You guys did this. You're you're responsible for this.
And he's right.
He's absolutely right.
And he's right. No question about it. Well, I know that we've got some audio, and I'm going to let you decide because there's a nice menu of audio where I don't know that we can get to all of it. Maybe we can. Hell, it's our show. We can do what we want to do. But you go ahead and start wherever you'd like.
From the correspondence dinner or or just the regular audio that we had?
Oh, no. From the correspondence
dinner.
Yeah,
let's actually play the clip with where he talks about Bernie, because I kind of like that one.
For example, we've got the bright new face of the Democratic Party here tonight, Mr. Bernie Sanders. There he is. Bernie, you look like $1 million. Or to put it in terms you'll understand, you look like 37,000 donations of $27 each. A lot of folks have been surprised by the Bernie phenomenon, especially his appeal to young people, but not me. I get it. Just recently, a young person came up to me and said she was sick of politicians standing in the way of her dreams. As if we were actually going to let Malia go to Burning Man this year. Was not going to happen. Bernie might have let her go. Not us. I am hurt, though, Bernie, that you've been distancing yourself a little from me. I mean, that's just not something that you do to your comrade.
Especially the comrade part. I mean, that's just too funny. That was great. It was really his timing's impeccable, which really for a president, his timing, his delivery is just absolutely impeccable. And I guess they had an interview with a guy that writes now for Funny or Die, and he was one of Obama's speechwriters, particularly for the correspondence dinner. And they asked him, "Do you guys write, the majority of his material?" And the guy responded. He said, "No, actually, he prepares for it throughout the year. He's got stuff prepared throughout the year that he's working on in order to do this correspondence dinner." And then he runs it by them when the time comes, and they work on it. And he's got a whole year of material. Proof being, let's play the Biden one. What he said about Biden. That's a short one. And then I'll tell you what, I want to hear that one, and then I want to hear the lame duck comment, and then we'll move on to the news of the day. How's that?
And as long as you let me talk at some point.
Well, by all means.
Okay, thank you.
Don't you have anything to say?
No, go, play.
All right. Here it is.
Anyway, in this last year, I do have more appreciation for those who've been with me on this amazing ride. Like one of our finest public servants, Joe Biden. God bless him. Love that guy. I love Joe Biden. I really do. And I want to thank him for his friendship, for his counsel, for always giving it to me straight, for not shooting anybody in the face. Thank you, Joe.
Nice dig at Dick Cheney.
Yeah, beautiful.
I liked, and I don't think you grabbed it. No, I don't see it on here. But when he was talking about how good Michelle looked, and he was saying, this was 8 years ago, this was a couple of years ago, this was a couple of weeks ago, and when he shows a picture of a couple of weeks ago, Michelle, of course, looks absolutely stunning because she is absolutely stunning. and it was a skeleton in a tuxedo.
Yeah.
It was really, really funny.
Well, part of the reason I don't know if you know this, Tony, but we're audio, so it was a visual joke.
No, I get that. That's why I described it. You don't know if I get that. Right.
Let's get on the same page here.
Okay. I'm trying to save you having to bleep out a lot of stuff. So
I don't know if you're what are you taking a deep breath? Are you?
No, I'm sneezing like crazy for some reason.
Oh.
But yeah, let's get to the lame duck one.
This is classic. Okay, here it goes.
So time passes. In just 6 short months, I will be officially a lame duck. Which means Congress now will flat out reject my authority. And Republican leaders won't take my phone calls. And this is going to take some getting used to. It's a curveball. I don't know what to do with it. Of course, in fact, 4 months now, congressional Republicans have been saying there are things I cannot do in my final year. Unfortunately, this dinner was not one of them. But on everything else, it's another story. And you know who you are, Republicans. In fact, I think we've got Republican Senators Tim Scott and Cory Gardner. They're in the House, which reminds me, security, bar the doors. Judge Merrick Garland, come on out. We're going to do this right here, right now. It's like the Red Wedding.
Beautiful, especially
it was beautiful.
And if you're not a Game of Thrones fan, the Red Wedding was a reference to Game of Thrones, and it was probably the most brutal, murderous, violent scene that has been in Game of Thrones since the start of Game of Thrones. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
No, I don't need to.
So,
spoiler alert. You're supposed to say that before you describe a scene from a show that people may have not watched yet.
But that was 2 seasons ago.
All right, and there are people that binge watch on Netflix or other streaming services, but thank you for sharing that.
Never heard of it.
Sorry, too late to save yourself.
Never heard of it.
That again, amongst many other things, especially Obama out at the end, which was just the perfect way to end it, as far as I was concerned. Was really beautifully done. Let me just share with you that these correspondence dinners don't always work out the way one hopes they will, especially for the President of the United States. Let me just set this up very briefly. Back in, I want to say, 2005, Congressman John Conyers had invited me to sit on a panel to discuss the Iraq War. And one of the women on that panel, and I'll let her go unnamed for right now, lost her son in that war as, of course, we were sold into that war by saying that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Well, during that year's correspondence dinner, and maybe it was a little earlier than that, maybe it was 2003, George W. Bush, during the correspondence dinner, they play a video of him looking for weapons of mass destruction in the Rose Garden, in the Oval Office, under the Resolute desk. And this mother who is sitting next to me, the lights are off, they're playing this little thing, starts sobbing like crazy. Think about that. And somehow they thought that was funny.
Yeah. Well, of course.
So sometimes, these things don't work out quite as well as some might lead you to believe.
Yeah, well, at least Biden hasn't shot anyone in the face.
Right. And there was, of course, nothing at all funny about that. And anyway, it's just wanted to share that. And again, I'm not George W. Bush bashing. It happened. And I'll let people filter that any way they want to. But it certainly was offensive to me, not to mention that poor woman that was sitting next to me. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should try to comfort her, if I should hold her hand, if I should ignore it. I mean, it was really uncomfortable. See,
I can imagine. and just to set the record straight, there's absolutely nothing wrong with bashing George W. Bush.
Well, I've been doing it for years.
So
and in fact, my most prosperous years in talk radio were the Bush years. So, there's the irony in all this. Is that the best financial years of my life were the years that George W. Bush ruined this country, ruined us internationally. And I hate to say I benefited financially from that in a huge way.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have President Trump to kick around.
Well, that's a nice segue to where we're going to go from here. I'm sorry I was blowing my nose again and didn't want to do it on air. I don't know what's going on with this, but maybe I have an allergy I'm not aware of. With all that said, there is a lot going on. And listen, it's as you know, Kasich is going to the Ohio Governor John Kasich will announce at 5:00 this afternoon Eastern Time that he is going to suspend his campaign for the White House. Ted Cruz surprisingly dropped out yesterday, which is why I texted you what I did last night. As I was driving home, I was involved in something, wasn't really paying attention or couldn't pay attention to what was happening in the world, except, the little alerts I'm getting through texts about who was winning what. All of a sudden I get a text that says Ted Cruz suspends candidacy. And I was stunned. Were you shocked by that? Surprised by that at all?
I wasn't. I mean, I'm actually this Kasich thing did he announce an announcement or did he actually announce that he's going to be suspending his campaign?
No, he announced an announcement, and then a lot of media outlets have been able to confirm that through senior advisors to the Kasich campaign. Now, listen, there's a chance that he won't, but after everybody and their brother, including the New York Times and The Hill, has announced that he is dropping out this afternoon, I can't imagine that he's not.
Well, the last time he announced an announcement, it was to say that he was going to keep going.
Yeah, I know that, but I again, these are not the kind of things that that they normally get wrong. I would be surprised if all of a sudden he said, well, I realize what the media has been saying today, but I've decided I'm going to stay a little longer because it doesn't matter that I was mathematically eliminated, I don't know, back in November of last year. Now that Ted's gone, somebody's got to stay in the race. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm looking at news feeds and New York Post, headline in the New York Post, and actually this is a good segue because we can play this 22-second bit of Obama talking about Reince Priebus at the correspondents' dinner. But the headline is GOP chairman kisses Trump's ass. That's the actual headline.
There's something to be said for tabloids, and perhaps we'll talk a little bit about the National Enquirer a little bit later. Oh, yeah. But the New York Post has never ever left a gray area. You know exactly where they stand, and in fact, they were, I think, critically important to reminding the people of New York that Ted Cruz was a piece of crap and didn't have New York values. The way they welcomed him to New York during the primary on the 19th of April in and of itself was interesting. But you know what? Let's go ahead and play that piece from the Correspondents' Dinner with Reince Priebus, because I think it actually fits in nicely here. And that'll give us a nice That'll give us a nice segue into Reince on Trump this morning on CNN.
Okay.
GOP Chairman Reince Priebus is here as well. Glad to see that you feel that you've earned a night off. Congratulations on all your success. The Republican Party, the nomination process, it's all going great. Keep it up.
No sarcasm there.
No, none at all. And listen, you and I discussed this last week. It sucks to be Reince Priebus. Now, Reince Priebus, as soon as it was clear that Donald Trump didn't just win the election in Indiana yesterday, he trounced Ted Cruz, absolutely beat the living tar out of that guy. And, it was a knockout blow, no question about it. I mean, he beat him by, I think 17 points, which is just an insane margin, considering all the millions that were spent either by the Stop Trump campaign or by the Cruz campaign and the way Cruz went after Trump the last few days especially. I mean, it was astounding how well Donald Trump did. But Reince Priebus was on CNN this morning talking to Dana Bash. And, he's got to put a spin on it, right? He's got to be, I guess, positive because he doesn't have a choice. And this is what Reince Priebus had to tell Dana Bash this morning on CNN.
A year ago, when this race started in earnest, did you ever think this is where you would be this morning?
You know, I didn't, but I don't think that's necessarily bad. You know what? I think something different and something new is probably good for our party. And look, I don't think anyone predicted what happened. So look, we're here. We're going to get behind the presumptive nominee. I stated the obvious in the tweet. Obviously, you still have to get to 1,237 delegates. That number still stands. But I obviously, without Ted Cruz in the race, who did something that I agree was very gracious last night.
Did that surprise you?
And unexpected.
Unexpected. So you were surprised when he suspended?
Yeah, I was. I was surprised. And that's a hard thing to do.
Double hot.
What's a hard thing to do? Be surprised, say nice things about Donald Trump. As you are aware, as I am aware, we both posted a multitude of links on social media throughout the day today, how Republicans are responding to Donald Trump being the presumptive nominee. Some have already committed to voting for Hillary Clinton. Some very prominent Republicans have already committed to voting for Hillary Clinton, and we can save the comments about, well, that contest isn't over yet either, but stow it. But people were actually burning their Republican voter registration cards.
Yeah, and videotaping it.
It's crazy. Listen, I've never seen anything quite like that in politics, and people can say what they want to about Reagan in 76. And, that actually happened, because there was I'm sorry. Can I laugh about Carly Fiorina falling?
I don't think we can laugh about her falling, but I certainly think we can laugh about Ted Cruz not giving a crap that she fell. I think we can talk about that.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if he didn't realize she fell, and I watched that video a couple times. 3 or 4 times. All right, 6 or 7 times.
Oh, he realized.
All right, 10 or 12 times. He may not have noticed it, but Heidi Cruz was standing right there. I mean, literally right there when it happened. So even if Teddy didn't see it, Heidi absolutely did.
Well, he is so, I mean, I don't know if I think you do watch. I mean, I know you watch Morning Joe, but Mika Brzezinski, she's constantly imitating him with the hand gestures and the pauses, and she calls him Shakespeare in the Park. And even his speech that he was bowing out of the race was like, what did he say? The road to victory has been foreclosed on.
Yes.
And I am therefore announcing to all of you, and then he's got the wide sweeping hand gestures, that I, who was called by God to do this, will be bowing out from the foreclosed upon road on which I was bound to travel.
You know, I got to tell you that if anybody, and I mean anybody, well, almost anybody else, were to read Ted Cruz's remarks, they would be really eloquent. They would be lovely. They would be great. But when Ted Cruz utters them, they're creepy and preacher-like and makes my skin crawl. And it's not just the sound of his voice that kind of gives me the creeps. It's his delivery. And, you know, we were just talking about Obama's delivery. Ted Cruz would never have that opportunity, would never have that skill set, Z, ever.
No, and that grin and that squinty-eyed Frank Burns kind of look.
There you go. Frank Burns. That's what I've been looking for months now.
Yeah, no lips.
It's Frank Burns.
Yeah, lipless.
Frank Burns eats worms.
Yeah, from MASH.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect analogy. Well, let's go back to Sunday. Ted Cruz was on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd. And, you know, Ted Cruz, by the way, and over the last couple of days have become very, very critical of the media, especially and surprisingly, Fox News calling out Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes specifically for anointing Donald Trump as the nominee. So that being said, on Sunday, Ted Cruz was on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd. And Chuck was asking him, frankly, questions that needed to be asked that hadn't been asked in a while, especially how contentious the Indiana race was becoming. And this is their exchange, which is a little long and worth every freaking second.
Well, and let me just preface this. It's a little long, but I cut it because it was twice as long. We have about 4 minutes here, and the interview in its entirety was 9 minutes of this. So just imagine that.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to play it now, Tony.
Thank you for the preface.
Said 50 words to each other in our entire lives.
Why? You wanted a government shutdown that he helped lead. How have you not had any interaction with the Speaker of the House as a leading Republican senator?
Chuck, it's actually a good illustration. During the government shutdown, I reached out and offered for Mike Lee and me to come over and sit down with the Speaker and Majority Leader, and Boehner said, no interest, no value, I'm not willing to talk to you. So I don't know him at all, but what was interesting about Boehner's comments is he praised Hillary Clinton. He thinks she's terrific. And he praised Donald Trump. He said Donald is his friend. He's his texting and golfing buddy. Listen, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and John Boehner are the Washington cartel. It is the corruption of Washington. And this is where, with all respect, a lot of the folks in the media don't understand. That's what people are ticked off at. The greatest fraud in this entire election is Donald pretending he's some sort of outsider. Donald and Hillary are the ultimate Washington insiders. They have been enmeshed in the corruption. If you like John Boehner, if you want a presidential candidate like John Boehner, then Donald Trump is your candidate. In fact, I saw those comments and kind of thought Boehner was auditioning to be Trump's VP candidate.
You've spent this entire interview trying to eviscerate Donald Trump. If he's the nominee, I take it you can't support him anymore, can you?
I believe if the Republican Party nominates Donald Trump, we will lose to Hillary, because when we offer Democrat light, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on the ballot, they support the same social policy. They support the same economic policy. In fact, Both Donald and Hillary support allowing illegal immigrants to become U.S. citizens. Now, Donald says he'll fly them back to their country
first. Are you going to support him?
We will lose.
I understand what you believe in the Republican Party. Can you support him? Can you tell your delegates,
Chuck,
lay down your arms and support Donald Trump? Well, you may not.
Chuck,
you realize that.
I recognize that many in the media would love for me to surrender to Donald Trump.
It's not about the media.
Number one, that Hillary
Senator,
wins,
it's about the numbers. It's about the numbers. He may win. Republican voters are the ones rejecting you. This is not a media conspiracy, Senator.
Well, actually, with all due respect, the media has given $2 billion of free advertising to Donald. Let me ask you a question, for example. How much money did the networks make on every one of the Republican debates?
I have no idea,
right?
Because we didn't have a Republican debate.
But you know what's interesting, Chuck? It's been now 49 days since we've had a Republican debate. The Democrats have had a debate. Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, they've been willing to debate. Donald can't answer questions about his foreign policy. He can't answer questions about how you bring jobs back to this country.
Why can't you answer the question of whether you can support Donald Trump or not? You can't answer that question. Why won't you answer that question straightforward, black and white?
Chuck, let me finish this point I'm making. Even though the media stands to make millions of dollars off of a debate, you hear radio silence from the media about no debates. They're giving up millions of dollars, and the reason is your network's executives are partisan Democrats. Why doesn't every TV station
You don't get to just say that. Wait a minute. You don't get to just say that. It's just not true, but go ahead. You just you're broad brushing here, and this is exactly what people hate about the media and politics, broad brushes, right?
Listen, the simple reality is the media almost entirely are liberal partisan Democrats. That is the reality of it. The media created this Trump phenomenon, and then they don't hold him accountable. Now, I'm sure the media planned to do so if he's the nominee. In the general election, suddenly you're going to hear every day about Donald Trump's tax returns. When was the last time you talked about his tax returns? You know, we ought to have a debate. There are real differences. Donald won't debate and the media won't hold him accountable. I think the people of Indiana deserve
Can you answer the question about whether you're going to support? Are you going to support Donald Trump if he's the nominee?
I am going to beat Donald Trump. We are headed to a contested convention, and we're going to win, and I'm not willing to concede this country. Listen, this is my kid's future, Chuck. It's not simply a game.
Well, nobody suggested it was a game.
Well, so before we talk about the matter at hand, Ted Cruz has been adamant about saying that he has never spoken to John Boehner, doesn't really know the man, never had a relationship with him. Add on top of that Donald Trump's nickname for Ted Cruz is Lying Ted. So let me go back a little bit. In 1996, John Boehner was suing the then Representative Jim McDermott for illegal wiretapping. And what had happened was a Florida couple had intercepted a conversation between Boehner and the speaker at the time, Newt Gingrich, on a police scanner, if you can believe that. And the couple recorded that phone conversation and gave it to Jim McDermott, and who was then the top Democrat in the Ethics Committee. So for this alleged violation of wiretapping laws, Boehner was suing Jim McDermott. Do you want to take a guess who his attorney was?
Ted Cruz.
Correct, sir. You are correct. I wish we had a little ding, 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 ding sound effect so I could.
We do. You just gave us one.
So, and confetti raining down, but it's audio, so we wouldn't be able to see that. Ding, ding, ding.
That'd probably just make me sneeze more.
Ding, 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 ding. You win. That's right. Ted Cruz, who has never talked or had a relationship with John Boehner, was in fact John Boehner's attorney. Lying Ted. Lion Ted Cruz. Lion Ted.
Lion Ted.
And actually, everything I'm seeing between last night and earlier today was that one of the big reasons, this is really comical, is one of the reasons why Ted Cruz ended his campaign was because his reputation was being ruined by by Donald Trump, like he had a reputation to lose, you know?
Well, listen, the guy's been delusional for a while. This whole Carly Fiorina thing was just another delusion.
It was swallowed by the earth.
Well, you know, and to this day, and from this point forward, I will never understand his reasoning behind Carly Fiorina. It says a lot about her that she even agreed to step into that role.
And nothing good.
No, not good at all. And listen, conservative pundits tried to spin it in a way that said, well, you know, listen, this was a softer, kinder, gentler Carly. It was a message that Ted couldn't deliver. And there's some truth to that. What's interesting is that when she introduced Ted Cruz last night, the very beginning of her introduction was the exact same very beginning of his introduction. And I didn't get that. They talked about, you know, the pillars of, you know, liberty, happiness, whatever. It was just, did you guys not compare notes before you went out there?
Yeah.
And seriously, I mean, it was the same opening. She thanked Heidi and the kids, and then she talked about the Constitution. Well, then he comes out and thanks Heidi and the kids and talks about the Constitution. And it was literally verbatim the same comments. Before we get to 538, and those that aren't familiar with Nate Silver and 538, you need to be. They did an obituary on Ted Cruz yesterday that was just brilliant. But before we get to that, two very quick, well, not very quick. One of them's a little longer, but still not that long. Ted Cruz was also on MSNBC with Hallie Jackson talking about Trump. I'd love to play that one. And then we really, really need to get into Trump invoking the National Enquirer yesterday and what he accused Ted Cruz's father of doing, because this is a predictor of what we can expect out of Donald Trump. But let's start with Hallie Jackson, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Okay.
The people of this country. This is not who we are. These are not our values. If anyone has seen the movie Back to the Future 2, the screenwriter says that he based the character Biff Tannen on Donald Trump. A caricature of a braggadocious, arrogant buffoon who builds giant casinos with giant pictures of him everywhere he looks. We are looking, potentially, at the Biff Tannen presidency. I don't think the people of America want that. I don't think we deserve that. I don't think Hoosiers want that.
Senator, these are some of the strongest words you've used against Donald Trump yet. You know I've been with you. I've heard you talk about him. Today feels different for you. So I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to say I sound like a broken record, and you're going to say that Donald Trump cannot.
If you sound like a broken record, someone else have a question?
But Senator, why
you've
not
asked
say
one already, Hallie. You've asked
will
already.
You support him as the nominee? I don't understand why you won't answer the question, Senator. If you say he's a liar, Jess, I'm sorry, but if you say he's a pathological liar and you say that you can't.
Hallie, you've asked one already.
But why not definitively
go ahead,
say
Jessica.
Okay.
It's just I don't even know what to say, because that was so rude, so dismissive, almost to the point of just really being. I mean, it really shows his like nasty, snaky, sleazy, douchey side of what he's really all about to me. I mean, it really just kind of.
What would have been so hard about saying to either Chuck Todd or Hallie Jackson, listen, at this point, I'm still a candidate, and I don't see a path towards supporting Donald. And I've felt this way for weeks now. In fact, had said something a couple months ago. And if indeed I am not the nominee, this is something that I'm going to have to get on my knees and pray about. I mean, there were so many ways to answer that question that would have shut the reporter up.
Well,
yet he chose not to do that.
There were a ton of ways, and I can understand not saying I can understand not saying that you will support him because you're running against him, right? So why concede and even talk about the possibility that that he might win? But you could have also thrown a Hail Mary and said, look, I don't think everything he said about Trump, and there's no walking any of this back. I mean, he said it. He can't come out and support him now. So why not earlier on, do a Hail Mary and just say, look, no, I think he's dangerous for the country. I don't think he's qualified to be president. No, I do not support Donald Trump as president, and that is why I'm running against him.
Again, like you said perfectly, there are so many ways to answer that question that would have really just shut everybody down and been the end of it. But no, Ted Cruz can't do anything the right way. So he, again, you said you weren't surprised that he suspended his candidacy. I was. I did not, even though he was trounced, even though he was beaten dead by Donald Trump yesterday, even though he lost 7 of the last races, and some of them coming in third to an anemic John Kasich. Even though all of that happened, I had no reason to believe that he would walk away. I really thought he would stay till the end and make as much noise as he possibly could. But he didn't do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, but he spent the whole week announcing that, Indiana was going to be their final frontier. And, not only that, but, I also want to mention, because I got into this argument with someone on Facebook about statistics and polling and stuff like that. And it was about Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. And the response I got from this person, because I sent them like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Huffington Post, things like that, proving my point. And her point was, I'll take Nate Silver over any of this. Well, Nate Silver also predicted a 90% chance of Hillary Clinton winning Indiana, and she didn't. So even Nate Silver can be wrong. I know. Yes. I know that was a little bit of a sidebar, but
no, I mean, he was wrong in Michigan.
It just occurred to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they weren't wrong about the obituary, and this was obviously done before Ted Cruz made his announcement. So you and I talked earlier today, and I thought, man, were they just forward thinking? And you said, no, I mean, the writing was on the wall. And so anyway, I don't want to spoil this, but want people to listen to this obituary, because as I posted online, if you need a little chuckle today, and many people do, this will give it to you.
Right. And just to go back to our earlier conversations, I can think of plenty of times when I didn't know the outcome of something, but I had already written 3 or 4 stories basically outlining what I was going to write depending on what the outcome was. So, and then you just fill in the blanks and you've got a story within 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, well, let's listen to this.
That was from my Boy Scout training.
Thank you.
Be prepared. Here's the obit.
Oh, hello. I'm Harry Anton, and this is 538's campaign obituary. This just in. Texas Senator Ted Cruz has announced that he is ending his campaign for the presidency, rendering trust dead, the dearly departed. Let's take a look back at some of Cruz's best campaign moments.
What does it mean?
Ted Cruz was the first to enter what would soon become the strangest election of his in our lifetimes. He announced his run on Twitter and followed that up with a speech at Liberty University.
I am announcing that I'm running for president of the United States.
Cruz was already a Tea Party star. He had taken over the Senate floor for 20 hours because he hated Obamacare.
I do not like them, Sam I Am. I do not like green eggs and ham.
And just a few weeks before his presidential announcement, Cruz showed Obama that he could take his Iran deal and do you-know-what with it. Cruz's popularity with conservatives helped him rise all the way up to 8% in the polls by October, which was not bad considering it was a 15-candidate field at the time. But this being a competition and all, you gotta come in first. So to get there, Cruz ran to the right. And I mean the right. He told us how he'd solve the ISIS crisis.
We will carpet bomb them into oblivion.
I don't know if sand can glow in the dark, but we're going to find out.
He released Ted Cruz's Christmas classics.
Please read this one, Daddy.
Okay.
He faced scrutiny from Donald Trump over his own birth certificate, which was issued in, you guessed it, Canada. But he handled it pretty well.
Since September, the Constitution hasn't changed. But the poll numbers have.
And then the New York Times accused him of failing to report a 2012 loan he got from Goldman Sachs.
If that's the best hit the New York Times has got, they better go back to the well.
Cruz demonstrated that he could go up against two formidable enemies of the GOP establishment, the liberal media and Donald Trump. And while this didn't necessarily win him any points with the Republican elite, one could argue it made a big impression with voters. Because Cruz went to Iowa, and he f***ing won.
Tonight is a victory for courageous conservatives across Iowa and all across this great nation.
Then Super Tuesday came along, and he f***ing won again. Texas and Oklahoma weren't huge surprises, but Alaska, second in Minnesota ahead of Trump? Sure, Cruz could beat Trump sometimes. In fact, he really was the only one who could. But at the end of the day, Cruz's appeal simply didn't extend enough beyond his neoconservative Christian Tea Party base.
Now, Cruz was never one to flip-flop on some of the things he stood for as a presidential contender. You know, Jesus Christ, liberal capitalism, the end of Obamacare, marriage being between a man and a woman, and not necessarily, well, actually maybe in that order. Could it be in 2016 Americans are, well, dare I say it, less hung up about those things and voted accordingly? Maybe. But let me be perfectly clear. From the get-go, I had many doubts about Ted Cruz's ability to win the Republican nomination. Because let's face it, Ted Cruz was hated by the Republican establishment, and they let everybody else know it.
Yay. We're going to need to put together, and I'll do this, some applause line, whatever. We'll put that together because that certainly deserves a standing ovation.
Hooray.
But really well done, and I think very accurate. Now, interestingly, I think that we can juxtapose these against each other. I had made a reference to Donald Trump evoking the National Enquirer as some kind of pristine news source to start a rumor yesterday that Ted Cruz's father was with Lee Harvey Oswald on the day the President Kennedy was assassinated, or something along those lines. And you really have to, again, we're going to juxtapose this against President Barack Hussein Obama, who talked about the anti-Muslim sentiment in this country. And you can decide for yourself, listener, who sounds and who is more presidential. Is that fair to say, Z?
I think that is more than fair to say.
All right. Well, let's take a listen first to Donald Trump evoking the incredible prowess of the National Enquirer.
I can't even believe we're saying this. But yeah, okay, here it goes.
And, you know, his father was with Lee Harvey Oswald prior to Oswald's being, shot. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. What is this, right prior to his being shot? And nobody even brings it up. I mean, they don't even talk about that. That was reported, and nobody talks about it. But I think it's horrible. I think it's absolutely horrible that a man can go and do that, what he's saying.
Okay.
I can't even.
I know you can't. I can't either. In fact, when I saw this through a text yesterday from a news feed, I was incredulous. I didn't realize that the source was the National Enquirer until I clicked on the link. And then I started laughing out loud, and people were looking at me like I was crazy. Somebody even said to me, "Is there something funny on your phone?" Yeah, but not so sure you'd get it. So I just left it there.
We have a guy that wants to hold the most powerful office in the world. That let this sink in. Not only does he read the National Enquirer, but he uses it as reference material.
Well, this is the same guy, Donald Trump, who said, hey, listen, I get my information from the internet. Well, there's a great source. But before we get too far away, now I want to and we know that Donald Trump wants to stop Muslims from coming into this country. And we also know that when Ted Cruz had made a comment about patrolling Muslim areas in this country, Donald Trump never had a retort to that. Just kind of let that comment stay out there without denying that it was the wrong thing to do. Here's President Barack Obama on what's happening, especially since we've just passed the 5-year anniversary of Osama bin Laden being killed. Let's take a listen.
I think that it is important for us to understand the nature of the threat, what works and what doesn't. Painting the Muslim community with broad brush does not work. They're our greatest allies in fighting against these organizations. Most importantly, we have to stay true to our values during this process. We have to make sure that we're not engaging in the kind of knee-jerk anti-Muslim sentiment that we've heard from some politicians. We've got to make sure that the legal structures around our intelligence gathering and our use of predators is subject to oversight. It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be perfectly smooth. There are going to be times where, as president, you make a decision knowing that there are going to be critics and knowing that there's some gray areas and ambiguities that you have to deal with given the realities of the situation. But overall, I think we can draw a lesson from the bin Laden raid that we've got really effective people and a government that knows how to do this. And as long as we operate from a position of confidence and strength and are true to who we are, groups like this or individuals like this can't defeat us.
Now, again, just want to make the point, which one sounds presidential, which one is presidential, and which one isn't. And I don't think we need to really say much beyond that, except give Z a chance to ring in.
I think that pretty much stands for itself.
Yeah, pretty stunning. Listen, in the time that we have left, let's take a moment and talk about Bernie Sanders' victory last night, which was not an overwhelming victory, although he did win Indiana. He didn't win big enough for it to really make a difference in the delegate count because of the proportional way in which the delegates are divvied out. With that said, Bernie Sanders has been steadfast in his resolve that he is here to stay, that he still has a path to the nomination, etc., although the overwhelming evidence suggests otherwise. I guess, listen, you're not a Bernie bro, but you are a Bernie supporter. So why don't we let you kind of take hold of that conversation and give us your thoughts?
Well, so let me correct you. I'm a Bernie Sanders admirer. I, like you, I agree, mostly because of circumstances and the way things are run, that it is highly unlikely that he is going to be the nominee. I'm not necessarily happy about that. I don't particularly. I'll tell you this. Last night. Now you have to remember, my wife was in New Mexico. I went to pick her up at the airport. It was basically, turned into like an 8 to 10 hour trip because there was a layover in Denver and all kinds of things. And the day before, the flight had actually been canceled, the original flight, because of maintenance issues on the plane before they took off. So she was exhausted, and she was lying in bed reading. And I said to her after Cruz announced that he was, I said I would rather vote for Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton, because at least Donald Trump doesn't believe half the stuff he says. And frankly, I think Hillary could probably take us to war. And I said this without laughing. And she looked at me very seriously and said, Richard, if you do that, I will divorce you. We have been together 13 years, 11 of which we've been married. She has never, even jokingly, threatened to leave me.
I would join her, by the way.
She was serious. Well, I was kind of in the mood to, like, we should just burn it all to the ground. Just burn it all to the ground. So I think, here's what I think, Tony Tripiano, I will now give you.
What do you think, Richard Zombeck?
I will now give you the Zombeck theory of Feel the Burn. I think Bernie's going to hang in till the end, at least through California. I think he feels that he owes it to his supporters. I understand what Hillary Clinton is saying is that he should start turning his supporters over to her, or at least what the Clinton campaign and the hillbillies are saying. I don't see that as possible. I don't think that people that would be likely to vote for Bernie Sanders are going to easily be turned to Hillary Clinton, because to them, Hillary Clinton is just, it's more of the same. And it's not Obama. It's not hope and change. It's more of what we had to them. I'm saying it's more of what we had with Bush and what we would get out of a moderate Republican. And I think that's the view, amongst Bernie supporters, is we could have had him. What do we want with her?
Well, and you'll read these comments from Richard in the National Enquirer. No, I'm just teasing. Your assessment is spot on. There's no question about it. And I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that Hillary is even going to get half of Bernie's supporters to vote for her. But I do believe that she will make up for that in independents and in I think some Republican voters. There's no question that's true. Listen, those that are loyal to Donald Trump will never be loyal to Hillary Clinton. And when we break down again who is loyal to Donald Trump, these are non-traditional voters. You know, Z, and something that maybe we can talk about tomorrow because we're just out of time is there's been record Republican turnout in primaries and caucuses and really anemic turnout for Democrats, even with all of the Feel the Burn excitement. As we discussed last week, he hasn't been able to turn the people that show up at his rallies into voters. And he says it's because poor people and working class people just don't vote, and that's the truth. Well, it's not the entire truth. If I'm exciting a certain section of the populace and I'm not converting them to voters, then I'm kind of failing.
Yeah, I'm going to need to sleep on that.
Which is why I suggested we do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
so you can sleep on it. I
have a quick one here, if you don't mind. So there's this guy on Facebook that I follow. His name's Jim Wright, with a WR. He has a blog called Stone Kettle Station. He's former military. I believe special ops, fought in Afghanistan and in Iraq. He's incredibly liberal, smart. He's a very good writer. But this is what he posted on Facebook when it came to Donald Trump picking a vice presidential nominee. And in fact, Donald Trump has announced that he would like to vet John Kasich. I just saw that too. But this is what Jim Wright wrote. Dear little baby Jesus, please, 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 please let it be Sarah Palin. As a political writer, I swear I will sacrifice a goat or shiv a homeless orphan right in the kidney. Your call if you make Sarah Palin Donald Trump's running mate. Sincerely, your new pal, Jim.
Wow. Well, he did promise that it would be a politician. She claims to be one. Let's keep in mind that she was the mayor of Ottumwa, Iowa, or wherever the hell it was. Some place in Alaska. I forget the name of it. Walla Walla or whatever. No, that's in Washington. for 4 years and then 2 years as governor. Was it even 2 whole years as governor of Alaska?
I don't think so. But
yeah, and so we can thank John McCain, by the way, for her.
Yeah, for that one.
And turned my microphone off to once again blow my nose and didn't turn it back on. All right, well, there's that possibility as well. That's going to do it for us today. Our hour is up. I'm liking this format. It seems more comfortable for some reason, and I don't know why, because it's no different than what we were doing before, except it's really not live now, but who cares? With that said, we will be back tomorrow with another edition of TNZ Talk. See, if people want to get more information about the show.
I was just going to say that.
Well, and then, of course, now subscribing has become critically important because
we actually picked up a few more subscribers when we went off the live show also. So you can find us on the intertubes at www.tandztalk.com. Go to our support page. You can find out the myriad ways of supporting us, both financially and just with your good deeds. And also you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr, and go to our Patreon page where you can find out how to support or patronize us, and sign up for the newsletter, which goes out daily and lets you know that there's a new show up and available in the archives, all of which can also be found on the website at tnztalk.com.
Well, as you know, I've been a little busy during the day and some evenings the last week or 20, and somebody had sent me an email last week that said, could you please tell Richard Zombeck he doesn't have to say www anymore because you don't even need to put that in? No, I will not tell him that, but I guess I just did. But
no, I say it because I like to. From now on, just for that person, I'm going to say www.tnztalk.com.
All right. For my sake, could you stick to www? Because if you do wah, I might cry.
Yeah, I develop and design websites too, so I'm pretty familiar with URLs. But thanks anyway.
Let me a real quick question. Do you think Ted Cruz cried last night?
I don't think he's capable. I don't think lizard men are capable of crying.
All right. Well, with that said, we are out of here for this Wednesday edition of TNZ Talk. We'll be back on Thursday. Thank you for being with us. For Richard Zombeck, I'm Tony Trupiano. And as always, we ask that you be well.
Oh, yeah. Can you feel it? Just over the credits, just riffing now. Words and chords. Not the poetry and the real thing, but not bad for an ad-lib. Not good, but... And it's not long enough, so just do a little bit more. And that's nearly done. That's the final credit there. That's the end.